Hey everyone, today I have a Families Fly Free member with me, George Pedraza. Am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so we're going to talk to George about his experience in the membership and what he would advise other folks who are looking to learn how to fly their family free. So, George, let's start by just having you just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your family and where you live.
Okay. Thank you. Number one, thank you for having me on, Lynn. I appreciate it. Uh, Again, George Pedraza, my wife, Rachel, and I live in San Antonio. I'm originally from San Antonio. My wife and I met in graduate school, actually on the East Coast in Philadelphia. After first getting married, we lived in New York for a few years and then moved back home. So San Antonio has been home again for me for the last 30 years. Where I'm at behind me, this is my home office. I have a picture of my parents, and literally that's the house I grew up in. Not the same
Cool.
color. The artist took a little creative license with that, but I grew up in a very modest home here on the South Side. My parents are both deceased, and had that done and before they passed, and it's just a wonderful reminder of where I came from. But so I love this place, separate from my office, if you will, and it's just a great place. This is kind of looking out into our side patio and side yard, and it just, I don't know, it's one of those views that every time I see it, I feel good. So this is a good place to
And
be.
I know I've talked to you before, and you were in your office with the river walk behind you,
Yes,
right? That's
yes,
cool too.
yes, I do. I mean, I'm literally right on the Riverwalk downtown San Antonio. Um, my wife and I both have four children, adult children at this point. Our youngest, in fact, we just dropped off in Chicago. She's going to Loyola Chicago. She's 18 years old, starting as a freshman. We have a 22-year-old who graduated from Georgetown University in DC, and she's now living and working in DC. A 25-year-old who's in Davis, California, right outside of Sacramento. He graduated from the University of Vermont, but his fiancee is getting her PhD there. They met in Vermont. And then finally, our oldest son, Alex, is 27, and he lives in Dallas. So our kids
All over
are
the place.
across the country now. So, I mean, on the one hand, you might say, well, George, if your kids are grown, why do you need this? Are you kidding me? I need it more than ever because I need to go visit them. Right? We need to go
Right.
see them. So that's a little bit about our family. Professionally, I actually have been in banking and financial services all my career. The last really 6 years, I actually am a wealth advisor. And the interesting thing about that, as it comes to your program, Lynn, is I often get asked by people, hey, what are the best banks, George? I'm not getting anything in interest, do you have somebody you suggest? Yes, I do. Invariably, people ask about colleges. You have four kids, George. Where did you send your them to college, and how did you pick those? And have accounts. And travel is definitely one of them because a lot of families do have lots of travel plans, and we're a family of six, and other families obviously varying sizes, but that's something that people are always interested, kind of how to safeguard the money, where, especially when the kids are becoming college age, where should we go and how do we pay for it? And traveling around, what are some good things that you would suggest that you and your wife have done? So it's been a very good experience with all the things that I've learned through your program.
So, as a wealth advisor, what do you think about this whole method of using travel rewards, miles, and points to fly free? And like, isn't it a good perk of it that you're not having to take money that you paid taxes on to?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's funny. I think my clients are not, when you say wealth advisor, thinking, oh my gosh, you must have, clients who have, $100 million. Most of mine are what I would call sort of average clients. And even those who do have a lot of money, if you will, let's call it $10 million or more in their net worth, they're looking at saving money. I would say the great majority of them are. but still interested. You say, well, they're getting close to retirement. They're asking me lots of questions about Social Security, which is just a small portion of their overall retirement, but they want to know how they can access that. So when it comes to learning these sorts of ways you can earn points, use travel hacks to save money, to fly people for free, people are really interested in that, even those that are, quote, that have maybe more than the average family does. So I definitely have talked about this to some of my clients when the opportunity has arisen and they've asked questions.
Well, yeah, because you can, instead of using this money to travel, you could use it to invest instead, right?
Absolutely. That's music not just to my ears as someone who can help them invest, but to their ears as well, because a lot of times people have been working hard to kind of get to a point to where they're getting ready to retire. Have I saved enough? Is this enough? And then when you have children and you're paying for college, and then you've got to go see them, or you want to do a family vacation, I mean, these things are expensive as well. So anytime you can save, it's funny. I'm not trying to talk too much about college, but it's a lot of times there are a lot of people who are willing to do a lot to pay for their kids' education. Understandably, education is very important. I think we would all agree that's a very strong value to have, but not at the expense of mortgaging your house and or even taking out parent student loans. Those are really kind of risky, because then it puts the parents at risk for retirement. So I always like the thing that they say, when you fly, put your oxygen mask on first, and anyone else, your children, then you help them. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to saving money, retiring. Make sure you're saving for yourself first, and then you also try to save and help your kids as much as possible, because if you do it the opposite, then you're going to be in trouble later when you retire. So helping people find ways to save money is really an important thing, and something they're very interested in.
So you've been a member for almost a year. Why did you decide to join the membership to start with? And were you skeptical?
Number one, yes, skeptical. Number two, I didn't decide to do this. I think I mentioned this to you when we first met, Lynn, but my mother-in-law actually gave me a membership to Family Fly Free as my Christmas gift, if you will.
So great idea, everyone. Give it as a gift to someone.
Give it as a gift. My mother-in-law now lives with us, and so I'm not quite empty nester, but she loves to travel. She's originally from South Africa. And so, when my father-in-law was alive, they would go to South Africa at least almost yearly, and do many other trips. And a value that they had when our kids were younger was they definitely would try and organize. And in fact, on several occasions, took us as a gift to go to Europe or somewhere like that. So travel is something that is a big value on my in-laws side of the family. And so she's always looking for ways to save money when it comes to travel. And she has, was familiar with you, Lynn, and Families Fly Free. And she started telling me about it. And, I decided, yes, that sounds interesting. And then, she told me how much it cost, but she thought it was worth it. And then, one day she just says, I got it for you, and you're now a member, and this is your birthday and your Christmas present, because my birthday is the day after Christmas. And before I knew it, I said, thanks, and because I didn't quite know what it was all about, frankly. And so I told Rachel, my wife, about this. I said, your mother just did this. And she said, what? And so we started looking into it. And certainly, admittedly, Lynn, you and, your I'll call them teammates, started reaching out about setting up an initial meeting. I didn't even realize that initial consult was part of this, right? I thought it was just, I had access now to a website to get stuff, but the personalized touch was what really kind of surprised me, frankly. So after, admittedly, probably maybe 60 days went by after going in, I realized, I need to set this up. I need to can I do this? And so that's when I really started becoming serious, and I had been looking at a lot of the content that you were putting out there, and the emails coming out, and watched a couple of videos that were live. That's when I really became more interested and much less skeptical, or actually the skepticism went away. So for me, it wasn't a decision for me to do. It was actually one that my mother-in-law made for me and for my wife.
I love it. That's so good.
Yeah.
So tell us, what are some things that you have been able to do as a result of being a member, like trips you've taken and those types of things?
Well, we were talking about college, right? And so I have a daughter who's now a freshman at Loyola Chicago. And so really last year around this time in particular, we were, and beyond that, we were looking at going to see different schools. So we went to schools in the Washington, D.C. area, in the Boston area, certainly Chicago, Seattle, and the Bay Area. And one of the nice things that resonated when I became a member was sort of your love for and relationship with Southwest Airlines, because we have been flying Southwest since 1993. And I know that year because that was the year we moved back to San Antonio, and I took a job with a local bank that had me going to Houston every week. And so we would get on the company bus, we would call it Southwest Airlines. So I was flying. That's when I first learned about companion pass, because flying every week, guess what? 52 times a year, you're gonna hit the at the time, I guess it was 50 round trip. Still the same 50 round
so
trips.
you earned it by paying for it through business.
Right, way back when. And so I liked that about that. So having a companion pass, we haven't had that consistently this entire time, but we have had years where, despite the fact that I'm not traveling that much anymore, we've had Chase Southwest Visa cards for a while. And our spending, when you have 4 kids, when you have colleges and all these things, kids are expensive to have. These things kind of add up. And so we were using that a lot. What I appreciate about your program is that, every once in a while, and we all certainly get credit card offers and things, and you always kind of wonder, is that a good deal or not? Does that make sense? And then I think, well, we like Southwest anyway, and there's a lot of us anyway, and we need points. But what I have been able to do as a result of your program is really do a keen assessment of what are the best ways to earn points using which cards, and really being more intentional and efficient about it. We were not that way. We were just like, charge. But now I realize how much I sort of wasted. If I was a little more efficient and more focused, that I would have saved even more. And so that has, in part, what your program has helped us to do, is to become much more efficient, much more careful about which cards to have, which ones to use when, et cetera.
And you don't have to have a lot of cards, right?
Correct. In our case, we have these cards that she is talking about, at least the Southwest Visa. We did not have the Sapphire Reserve or Preferred. We do have those now. And so that has been really helpful. And, just the thing on the Chase Travel Rewards, the Sapphire and Preferred cards, those are incredible points. I love the flexibility they have, in particular for us on hotel stays, which is what you said was a really good way to use them. That is exactly what we have been able to use them for. And in fact, I like that you don't have to, use all your points for, a few stays. You can choose to use half your points or a quarter of your points and pay the difference. That's a good way also to, I think, save money without kind of blowing everything that you have on just a couple of trips. You can spread it out over time. So that's been a really good thing for us, because I feel like we had some of the free travel. We didn't have the free hotels. And now we've got these two things in combination, which is great.
And probably in a, like you said, a more efficient way to go about it. Take you less time. Yeah.
Right. No, I think, if you're someone who has an interest in travel, because you're traveling a lot, you have others you have to take with you. You've heard of other sort of, I'll say, plans or programs or individuals out there, and you have heard more of what I'll call the churning of different credit cards. That never had any appeal for me.
Right.
That's why I think I never did anything before. The gift that I received allowed me to kind of stop, look, listen to what your plan was and say, oh, this is reasonable. She's not saying every year, okay, you've got to get a new card and get rid of that one. It's just a very well planned out way to maximize your credit cards. Even in our case, I don't know if I tell you this, but we've had our Chase Southwest Visa, I think, since 2009. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And so am I due to cancel this one and get a new one and get a new set of points? Absolutely. But I'm timing it for when the right time is. I know I can now do that. And, I have, just a much more efficient way of looking at when and how to do that.
Have you had any great hotel stays that you can tell us about that you've gotten with points?
We have stayed, recently we've stayed, again, I'll mention Chicago because we were up there. Loyola Chicago is the north side of Chicago, and it's only about 3.5 miles from Evanston, Illinois, where Northwestern is.
Okay.
It's closer to stay in Evanston than to stay downtown and come all the way up to Loyola. So we've stayed at a Hyatt House there. We stayed at the Graduate Evanston, which is kind of a really cool hotel.
You just stayed at that, or my husband stayed at that one in Bloomington, where in IU, where my son is, and he sent me the picture. So cool, that hotel.
Yeah, it's definitely a different type of hotel chain, and but we appreciate that. We recently went to Milwaukee after we dropped off our daughter in a way to kind of try and take our minds of coming home to an empty house. So we continued from Chicago to Milwaukee just to go see a different place, and we stayed at the Kimpton Journeyman up there. And that is Kimpton properties are wonderful, and that was did not disappoint. Very nice area in a very trendy part of Milwaukee, the third ward that's being renovated. So we were able to use points for that. That one was, there were some small things that's more kind of hotel based, but the stay and the use of the points and all that was really a nice perk.
And you have used your Southwest points to visit colleges. Any other fun uses of those?
Well, I think that, as I mentioned, I've got kids now all over, and Dallas is close enough that we can drive, but sometimes we don't want to do that 10-hour round trip drive. Let's just fly to Dallas and back. That's pretty easy. Washington DC is a place that we go to often. My wife Rachel is from there. My mother-in-law, I mentioned, lives with us, but she still owns her house in Maryland and suburbs. And so we like to go there and visit and see a lot of family friends that are there. And of course, when our daughter was in school there, we were seeing her, and now she lives there. We like to go to the DC area a lot. We also recently took a trip in June, more towards New York. We went to a wedding in Princeton, New Jersey area. Flew Southwest to LaGuardia. We stayed in New York a couple of nights. Actually, that was another great use of hotel points at the Maritime Hotel in Chelsea, kind of meatpacking district.
Just down from that at the Standard.
Yes, I saw that. I know exactly where that is.
I know where the Maritime is too.
Yes, we love
such a cool
that
hotel
area.
Me too.
And we lived in New York for 3 years, from 90 to 93. And we've stayed in a lot of other places, but we've never stayed in that area, and we're going to stay there again next time. That whole area was wonderful. The High Line, yes, great area. But that was, and so we did, we flew to LaGuardia, we trained down to Princeton, we flew. We were in Philadelphia for a few days, and then unfortunately, one of Rachel's aunts passed away about a week before our trip, and the timing of it all was that her funeral was in Worcester, Mass. We went up to, we used points at all these hotel stops. Wow. And then, we flew home out of Logan, out of Boston, all on Southwest. So, all these things really made it pretty easy and possible because I wasn't too concerned about airfare. because at a minimum, Rachel flies for free with me because of the companion pass.
Right.
And then on the hotels, and I had plenty of points to be able to, if not pay for the stay outright, substantially reduce it by using, a set number of points that help to bring down the cost. So that was a good trip. And then, we've gone to the West Coast where we have our other son and his fiance. I have a niece and her husband in the Bay Area. So, we definitely have been traveling a lot domestically. We would like to do a Hawaiian trip sometime soon. And I know I'm excited because you've got a lot more Hawaiian content now. Haven't really begun looking into that, but I know when we are able to make, some specific date and time, that we'll have plenty to learn and glean from all the information that you have.
Yep. Got lots of info on Hawaii for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like the cost of membership was worth it to you? And can you quantify in any way what you think you might have saved?
Without a doubt. I mean, again,
you didn't pay for membership,
right?
But
This was a gift, but I'll just say that I've already decided that I am going to re-up because I feel like the amount of value and savings that we got out of it was definitely well worth it. I mean, where do I start? I mean, everything from getting the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which for me came with 70,000 points. My wife got the Sapphire Preferred, and she got 80,000. Well, that's 150,000 points. So how much that equates to. So that right there alone more than covers the cost of membership. I'm going to get a Southwest, I forget what they call, Premier Business Card. And that's going to be another 80,000 points right there. The companion pass, having it, I'm estimating that we're doing at least one trip a month. So if you say, well, an average $300, saved, that's $3,600 right there. By Rachel being able to fly for free. The travel hacks, now that was something that I just totally did not expect. Has also netted to us, I estimate, around $800 to $1,000 that we saved just using the travel hack. And then I never used to buy points at all, but you have done a really nice job of sort of just letting us know when there are sales on points, like 45% off, and also why we should use points. Although I know there's been a recent change on Southwest Point, the point and use of points, I think, still is a very prudent thing to do. So occasionally, I may kind of, fill my tank a little bit with some of the point sales that go on. And so I think that's the reduce. I mean, if I added all that up, I mean, I don't know, it's got to be probably between $6,500 and $7,500, roughly.
Awesome.
So I mean, yeah.
And that's like, I figure we save about 8,000 a year, my family. So you're right in that territory.
Right. And even though my kids a couple of them are definitely sort of off the payroll, so to speak, they're working and stuff. I mean, we definitely, when we're going somewhere, we will invariably say, hey, we'll get your ticket, to join us from Dallas or wherever. And so, we're still paying for our kids' tickets, although
how great, though.
Yes. And although, they are, it's kind of nice when like, oh no, Dad, I'll get half and you get half. Like, oh, okay, that's kind of a nice thing. That does happen. But
you can teach them how to do this too, which I think is so great,
Without a doubt. So it's not just Rachel and I. We are still, and of course my 18-year-old who's still a dependent, but the other three that are essentially independent, 2 out of the other 3 are for sure kind of independent. We are, we're still helping them on the travel side, and we're happy to do that, and we're happy to have a way to do that relatively inexpensively, if not free, using points.
So talking about renewing for a second year. So like a question someone just asked me was, okay, why they hadn't joined yet? Why would I want to renew for another year once I learn how to do everything? So what would be your answer to that? Like you've learned the process, you've gotten your plan, but what's the reason to continue on?
I think it's 2 things. I think one is the content in real time that you put out is really helpful, and having access to that. Admittedly, at times it's overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, wait, this is about this, this is about that. But obviously you can pick and choose. Like I mentioned Hawaii, for example. That's something that's going to become more and more interesting to us as we get closer to planning a time frame when we're going to go. So I'll know that I'm just going to go to that. But the timely amount of information that you share through webinars, through emails, texts that you choose is really useful, and you can't get that without being a member. Secondly, I think the very personal approach, Lynn, frankly, with you and some of your other colleagues, again, I think I said that in the beginning, I did not expect that. I thought I became a member of having access to a portal where I could now get information. I did not expect this one-on-one interaction, this one-on-one personalized plan for the Pedraza family on how to be how to be able to fly for free, travel for free, or pretty darn close. I didn't expect that. And so for me, even though we have a plan in place, things change, right? And you have to adjust. In my world as a wealth advisor, we tell people, we help them put together a financial plan, and we say, let's review this at least once a year, because things do change, right? Someone might get sick, or lose a job, or hey, I've decided I'm going to retire 5 years earlier than I said I was going to. How can I make that happen? Things change. So I think you might want to be able to come back to you and have a one-on-one, twice a year, quarterly, whatever the case may be, and kind of tweak and make sure that you're still on the right path.
Yeah, and you get access to ask us any questions at any time and get an answer. So if you're ever unsure about something or need help booking something, we can always step in and help you. And just, we have the community forum. I don't know if you've made use of that at all, but
I have.
Yeah, where you can get.
I mentioned Milwaukee,
members.
right? Never have been to Milwaukee before, so I just put it out there. Hey, does anyone have any thoughts on Milwaukee? We're going to be there a couple days, and I had several responses that were very useful, frankly, because again, we'd never been to Wisconsin, we'd never been to Milwaukee, and that honestly helped us decide where to stay and in what part of town. And we agreed afterwards that was in fact the right place to stay our first time, etc. And I would not have known that had I not put that in the community forum.
I love it. Yeah. Well, because we pretty much have people that live everywhere. So there's always someone who knows about a particular destination. So I think there's lots of great members or reasons to stay a member, but.
And I've also got pinged on that at least once, someone coming to San Antonio. And say, hey, George, you're there, what are some thoughts? And so was able to sort of, happy to contribute and add to things that people might want to see and do if they were coming to San Antonio for the first time or second or third time. So that's a useful thing.
Right, because I don't know what there is to do in San Antonio or Milwaukee for that matter.
Right.
But someone in the membership does, which is so great,
Right.
Without you get the collective wisdom there.
Without a doubt. So it's been really, I think, good with that. I think, and then I think I said this, and maybe I didn't say this well enough, but honestly, working with you in particular, Lynn, I mean, you're not just accessible, but you're very personable, which I appreciate. I think, we're always looking to deal with good and nice people and honest people, and honestly, you are that way, and I think that's an important thing. And another reason why I think if you were thinking about joining and you're just like, well, who am I going to, be dealing with? If you've seen or heard Lynn, then, and some of her other colleagues are also like that. They're obviously different people with different personalities, but I mean, that's the kind of people that you're going to be dealing with when you get to have your questions answered or have your one-on-ones. And I think, honestly, just a very, I think, personable way that you have is something that I think is important, and the reason why, one should renew or one should join to begin with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I love doing this. So I think it's just fun for me.
Your passion comes through on this. It really does. And you can tell that no matter in what people are doing, right? You can tell when they're passionate about something, and so that rings true.
So what would you tell someone who, thinks this is an expensive program and they're, not sure if it's worth the money? Like,
Right.
what would you advise them?
I would say it's even more expensive not to do this because of the mistakes that you're going to make. They may not seem like mistakes when you're doing them because you're acting on what you know. But what you don't know, and you'll learn through this program, is like I said before, we've had companion pass, in before. We've had Southwest Visa cards before, but we weren't maximizing. We weren't using them the right way. We were maybe spending too many points on a particular flight when if we knew a little bit better or had some flexibility, and I understand flexibility it can't happen every single time, but if you have that and know to do that, you can really save a lot more than what we were doing. So I think that it's more expensive not to be doing this, especially if you're one who enjoys traveling, travels with even if it's just you and your spouse, but presumably you, your spouse, and or significant other and children. There's really no better plan out there to help you get to do that in a very economical, efficient, and nearly free, and in some cases free, nearly free way. So I would say that it's more expensive not to do that. And I've shown that we have more than made back the cost that it took to get in.
Right. And I mean, I like your point about you had the right cards. So it's not like you can go get these cards without me telling you that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the correct use of the cards. I think that's the key, right? Is the process and the order and the timing is all of what makes it simple, not just the getting of the cards.
Right. And you're right. I don't have a wallet full of credit cards, which I like and appreciate. But my wife and I now know, oh, we're gonna go do this. We need to pay for this. Let's think for a second, which is the right one to use. And we've gotten better about that. And frankly, I'm not going to say that we were really good with that day one in your program because it does take some.
Take some time.
Yes, yeah, you have to kind of train yourself to do this. And before you know it, it really is nothing. It really is nothing. It just sort of comes and becomes second nature. And so things like that is where we've become so much more efficient, and I appreciate that. I mean, we have so many things, right? We have iPhones, we have cars that you get these owner manuals, you get new TVs, and it's like we joke about how we don't know like a fraction of the capability of each of these things, right? Because we don't have the time to look through all these things. Well, it's kind of the same thing here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I have the Southwest Visa card, but if I really didn't understand all the right ways to be using it, and Southwest itself, I've been flying them since 1993. I learned things from you that I didn't know, despite the fact that I've been flying them for almost 30 years, right? The travel hacks, the point sales. I mean, these are things that I just didn't know, having been a Southwest flyer for almost 30 years. So those are things that I learned through this program that I, again, just didn't know beforehand.
Yes. So good. Okay. I think that's all my questions for you. Was there anything else you wanted to add that we didn't cover?
The only thing that I would say, and we're still learning on this, on the Chase Sapphire Reserve and the Preferred, I think, but the Reserve is sort of the top of the line. That we're still learning on things like the Priority Pass and the lounge, being able to use airport lounges. Obviously, it's going to really work well if you're flying out of a larger airport that has clubs and stuff like that, right? Because they're not everywhere. But so we're still learning on, to look ahead of time and to know and see where that is. So that's something that we're still learning. But again, my point in bringing that up is that that's yet another perk that you could get by having the right card and knowing how to use it. Because, I think everyone flies enough and sometimes it would be nice to go and relax in one of those lounges
Nice.
when you have, too long to wait or your flight's delayed or whatever it may be. And certainly if you're traveling with a couple of people, that's a good thing to do. So that was kind of another nice perk that we need to kind of fully explore as we're doing that more and more.
Yeah, it just makes travel more enjoyable, especially if you're taking one trip a month, for sure. You need a priority pass.
It's definitely about that. It's definitely about that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience in the membership. I love that you're a wealth advisor and that you can bring that financial perspective to this as well. So thanks for joining me, and thanks everyone. We will see you on the next episode.